Here's a rephrased version of your article with improved flow and clarity. Growing concerns over the future of public education in the US. There is increasing concern over the future of public education in the United States following former President Donald Trump's recent executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. Signed on Thursday, this move is described as the first step toward completely eliminating the department. Joining us now is former U.S. Secretary of Education and Managing Partner at Emerson Collective, Arne Duncan. Arne, it's good to have you with us, especially at a time like this. Trump claims that his executive order will return control of education to the states. However, states already fund approximately 90% of K-12 education and make the majority of decisions regarding school operations. His main argument for this decision is that student performance has not improved over decades, yet he has not explained how shutting down the Department of Education would lead to better educational outcomes. Let's listen to what some officials from the Department of Education had to say following the announcement of these cuts. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what this agency actually does. We don't dictate curriculum, that's legally prohibited. We don't tell teachers how to teach or enforce specific educational methods. We don't go into schools and impose rules. This decision raises significant questions about the practical impact on classrooms across the country. The impact on education. Arne, you've pointed out that an executive order like this is largely symbolic, with no legal authority. The Department of Education was established by Congress, meaning only an act of Congress could dismantle it. So, in reality, this is unlikely to happen. Additionally, since states already provide the bulk of education funding, Trump's move to return education to the states is unnecessary. It's already their responsibility. However, the real issue at hand is the learning crisis in the US. Students' reading proficiency remains alarmingly low, as reflected in national assessment scores. Yet, none of Trump's actions or proposals address this fundamental problem. Eliminating the Department of Education does nothing to help students learn to read, and that's the true failure in all of this. The political agenda behind education policy for years, calls to eliminate the Department of Education, have served as a litmus test for conservative lawmakers. Trump's executive order was signed in a highly publicized ceremony surrounded by Republican legislators and conservative groups, a stark contrast to other administrative cuts that have been carried out behind closed doors. Arne, what does Trump's vision, or lack thereof, mean for the federal government's role in education? Trump doesn't have a vision. His goal is simply to dismantle public education. However, education should be a bipartisan priority. Historically, Republican presidents have played crucial roles in shaping and expanding education in America. President Abraham Lincoln established land-grant universities during the Civil War, a transformative move. President Dwight Eisenhower created the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, establishing federal involvement in education. President Richard Nixon, despite his controversies, signed the legislation for Pell Grants, which have been life-changing for students. President Gerald Ford passed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, ensuring that children with special needs receive a fair education. What we're seeing now is unprecedented, a president actively working to dismantle public education. And it's not stopping at K-12, Trump is now targeting higher education as well. Asterisk student loan concerns adding to the alarm, the White House has announced that the $1.5 trillion in federal student loans will now be managed by the Small Business Administration. NPR reported that, during an emergency meeting, Education Department officials expressed concerns about their ability to continue basic loan services. Arne, are you confident that student loan services won't be disrupted under an agency with no education expertise? Not at all. When I led the Department of Education for 7 years, my top priority was ensuring that federal student aid was properly managed. The sudden dismantling of the Federal Student Aid (FSA) office, laying off half the staff, and shifting responsibilities to another agency is an enormous operational risk. If I were asked to serve as Secretary of Education under these circumstances, I would refuse because I wouldn't have confidence in the system's ability to function properly. If this transition leads to a crisis in funding for higher education, the Trump administration will be responsible. There's an old saying, if you break it, you own it. By dismantling the Department of Education and gutting FSA, they've taken on enormous risk. If things go wrong, the blame will fall squarely on them. Asterisk addressing the real education crisis. You mentioned earlier that nothing Trump is doing will help students learn to read. What should be done instead? Education should be a non-partisan issue. We should all be working together to address learning gaps, especially since students were already struggling before the pandemic, and those who were behind have only fallen further behind. We cannot afford to lose a generation of learners. 2 solutions are proven to work. 1. High-dosage tutoring. Intensive, high-quality tutoring significantly accelerates student learning. 1. Some districts and states have successfully implemented this, and it needs to be expanded. 2. More learning time. When people struggle with anything, they need more time to improve. 2. Whether it's after-school programs, Saturday sessions, or summer learning opportunities, additional instructional time is critical. If we implemented these strategies on a national scale, we could help students succeed and ensure their future. Ignoring this issue would be devastating, not just for students and their families, but for our economy and democracy as a whole. Asterisk final thoughts. Arne Duncan, thank you for sharing your insights and for your years of service in education. We appreciate this conversation and look forward to speaking with you again. This version maintains the core message while improving clarity, readability, and engagement. Let me know if you'd like any further refinements.